Sorry, I had some indigestion. I was about to do the review, but drank some Coke. Sorry. When you think of small earphones, usually it's gonna be like an in-ear monitor with ear tips, or maybe it's an earbud that kind of sits outside a bit. And sometimes there's gonna be an odd in-between design, like the Samsung Galaxy Buds Live. Well, today we have another unconventionally shaped type, and it's wireless too actually, in the form of the RoseLink or Rose Technics OpenFree. Look at this odd design, right? Probably not something you often see every day. Let's see if it's any good for audiophile usage, huh? But before that, if you like the show, help the channel grow with a like and a sub. I'm really aiming for 5,000 subs by the end of summer and would really appreciate your help. As you can see, the box is pretty sleek with a cyan color with some nice graphic design and a mainstream style, showing the OpenFree in the front and some specs in the back. Open that up and you get the OpenFree in its case, front and center. Down below is the small compartment that contains a basic charge cable, and there's a thicker and bigger than usual manual with all you need to get started. But yeah, it's pretty simple. That's pretty much it for this unboxing. For the case itself, you have this standard kind of cylindrical oval shape. I got sent the mint color option. It's a kind of, I'd say a warmer shade of green, but still pastel-like rather than like an intense hue, you know? It's a bigger case than usual to accommodate for the special open ear design. So here's a size comparison with the Rose Ceramics X and the Earfree i5 case. There's a charge indicator LED in the front, just right below the nice logo. Flip to the back and you see a connection reset button on top of the USB-C charging port. Now what's cool is that there's a lanyard hook on the side. I actually quite like this. Hopefully other brands will start integrating this kind of lanyard thing to their cases too. Flip up the lid and you'll see the OpenFrees resting inside. As you can see, it's quite a novel take on an open ear concept. So when I first saw this shape, my impression was that it kind of looks like some type of earrings or ear piercings, and the other shape I equate to this is like a music note. It's a bit confusing to put on at first, but actually you'll get used to it quite quickly. So basically, you just identify whether it's the left and right side, you slot it to the back of your ears like this, see? And yeah, basically you're all set. So with this design, it places the electronics and the touch sensor to the bigger block on the rear, connected by a flexible silicone bridge, and then the driver, it's in the front bulb and it rests into your ears. It's lightweight, but it does have a bulkier kind of form factor than the typical true wireless earbuds. The fit will vary by your ears. Like my left ear here, it actually seals quite well and it gets like good bass and everything. But my right ear, usually it requires a lot of constant adjustment. Even if it gets seated well, after a while I have to sort of readjust the fit a little bit. However, I think a perfect fit isn't really crucial because these are kind of designed for casual outdoor listening, whether it be on your daily commute, on a train or a bike, or would it be doing sports, maybe biking or something like that, or maybe going to the gym. So I think for that one, it has an IPX4 rating, which is proving quite useful for me in Japan's rainy season where you've got these sudden rains that just come down from nowhere. The weather report just does not predict that at all. Also, kudos to this kind of open ear design for enhancing the accessibility to people who wear a lot of ear piercings. I'm sure this will work quite well. Now, battery wise, the OpenFree is advertised for 10 hours on a single charge and another 5 more charges inside the case. However, in my real use, I get closer to maybe 7 to 8 hours and about maybe 3.5 extra charges onto here, which is actually still pretty good for a true wireless design. Usually, this kind of true wireless stuff, it lasts 5 to 6 hours actually. So 7 to 8 is above average. You can also install the RoseLink companion app. It's available on the Play Store or through the QR code to access some extra features. You can check the charge level on the individual earpieces and the case. There's 2 EQ presets, the stock balance preset and the quote-unquote bass one. So honestly, this bass preset, it just kind of cuts some of the lower mid warmth. Honestly, this bass preset just cuts some of the lower mid warmth. I guess they're hoping it will emphasize the low end more, but the bass level itself is about the same for my ears. There's support for dual device connection, or you can choose between a bunch of codecs from like high quality LDAC to LHDC, quite a rare inclusion usually, or even the future-proofed LC-free protocol. So for this design, the driver itself probably doesn't need the lossless codecs because it's not going to resolve that much detail, and even if it does, it's not going to seal your ears that well. But hey, you have the choice of high quality codecs, so I'm perfectly happy. You can also customize the touch controls here, but I just left it as stock. And additionally, there's also a square page which includes background noises like nature sounds, rainfall, or even like a warm fire to help you sleep. And you can play up to 3 sounds at the same time. Alright, so how does this open ear design sound like? To my ears, it's kind of like an earbud sound, but in a different form factor that kind of lets your noise in, right? That means that you get a lot of warmth and an open feeling that allows for situational awareness by, allowing the outside noise to come in. Assuming perfect fit, I think the OpenFree, actually it has a really good bass range. Like for this type of design, it's probably like a chart topper for the bass impact actually. This is a mostly mid-bassy kind of low end, It's compensating for when the earpieces, naturally they'll slide out of your ears a little bit. So how much bass you get, it depends on the fit. But in ideal conditions, the OpenFree can generate a very energetic low end with good rumble even. The mid-range here is quite warm. It really does sound like an earbud with much emphasized lower mid-range that thickens up the vocals, It's very vocal forward too. This is useful not only for the music, but I've also found it to be a pretty nice companion for podcasts. I was listening to Linus Tech Tips One show a lot on these actually. Sometimes the lower mids, they're a bit too thickened up and they give vocals this unnatural sluggishness, but this is thankfully quite rare. Upper mids are also presently bright, definitely slightly boosted, just like other RoseLink releases, although the detail extraction here does leave me a bit wanting. So it does have some micro detail ability actually, but for the most part you'll just hear the main melodies, the vocals, and some of the instruments that are backing it up. Not really the finer nuances due to, again, the nature of this kind of design, right? The treble is slightly rolled off. It's nothing that is excessive, but it does round out the warm sound signature, and it just does not offend, even if not providing the most clarity, making the OpenFree quite a pleasant set for long listening sessions, which I'm guessing that the target demographic for this product will be going on long treks and outdoor walks, so it's fulfilling its purpose quite well. Maybe you're not familiar with this kind of open ear design that much internationally, but in the domestic Japan market, it has been tried by many brands many times actually. And over my time trying a lot of these products, from the Ambi earpieces, if you know about them, to these lesser known domestic sets, they all face the same problem in that they just have these smaller housings and like lower quality drivers. And they do not have the same level of bass as the OpenFrees can push. And they distort much faster too compared to these guys. So the OpenFree from RoseLink, they advertise this, they call it like a plank dynamic driver. I'm not sure what that means, but basically it's aiming to achieve a better sound. And I think I'm inclined to believe it because it is markedly improved compared to the domestic Japan sets. Now, in a battle with the recent Moondrop Pill, the playing field is actually a lot more even. So both sets, they employ this new open ear design, right? But the Pill, it has a slightly more rounded profile. And of course, its pill-shaped carrying case, I do think it does look sexier than the OpenFree's kind of generic shape, you know. Now, in terms of feature, the pill is actually the more convenience and utility favored set because it offers a noise cancelling mode on the pill. Although, honestly, this ANC on the pill, it's really quite weak, especially on an open ear design, you know, and it's mostly there for show. But it trades that to have a more limited codec support, which is only SBC and AAC. Whereas with the OpenFree, it does not have the noise cancellation, but it makes up for that again with LDAC, LDHC, and LC-free inclusions. Even if, again, I think it's quite overkill for this kind of design. But hey, you get the choice to get it. Sound-wise, the Moondrop Pill has a more mid-centric sound. It rolls off the bass and the treble ranges, whilst the OpenFree, I think it tries to go for a more extended response, at the same time keeping that earbud-like warmth. Bass on the OpenFree is often more impactful overall. I think it just can push more air, you know, whilst the Pill's low end, it's mostly percussive. Kind of similar to their Neko Cake series if you've tested those out. The mid-range on both sets are warm, of course, but there's a bit more upper mid-range energy on the Pill, and that makes it lean kind of tonally brighter, I guess. Treble on both here, they have a roll-off, but the Pill's lean bass, it gives it a stronger kind of, I would say it's an A-shape sound signature than the OpenFree. Between the Pill and the OpenFree, I think it's pretty much down to preference actually. Do you like the cooler aesthetics and the noise cancellation on the Pill to get those utilities? Or do you want the better low-end extension of the OpenFree? That's up to you, my man. For this type of open ear concept, the Rose Salsa OpenFree is definitely sacrificing some pure sound quality and technical ability for a more loose, comfy fit that lets in outside sounds for daily commute and outdoors use. However, I think the OpenFree does try to retain some of the audiophile features like the rich support for LDAC, LDHC, and LC-free codecs. And it offers marginally better low-end energy than the competitors with a similar design like the Moondrop Pill. The fitting of these designs will be more ear-dependent than usual though, so your mileage may vary. Thank you to Rose Salsa for providing an OpenFree sample for review. However, they do not have any creative or editorial control over my content, and all that I've shared in this video are my honest thoughts.